Hey guys, welcome to Let's Play Dark Souls Part 7, I believe we are on. Last time, we descended Blight Town. We did the upper half of Blight Town. And now we're in the lower half, which is just the base of Blight Town, basically. In this area, there is a bunch of poison swamp. And so as you walk through it, you will slowly get poisoned. There's basically a 100% chance you'll get poisoned. So, there's no real need to currently waste your purple moss clump. That's another mistake that some newer players might make, is that they'll like get poisoned and then they'll be like, oh crap, and they'll just immediately heal it. But it's like, there's all this swamp everywhere anyway, like you're gonna get poisoned again. You don't want to like heal it until you're like on solid land and like you're done with the swamp. Like, whenever you're walking between these solid land pieces, just don't even bother. Don't even. But anyway, there are a bunch of goodies we can grab down here. Over here, there are two of these, similar to those ogres that had the clubs before. These have just giant rocks that they throw at you. Honestly, they're really not even worth killing. They're guarding a great club, which is actually a really good strength weapon. I personally don't like it just because I don't really like clubs. Anything that's a club I don't really like. I just don't like the weapon class. But it is a really good weapon. It requires like 28 strength. So it's not too much, but then it also has an A scaling in strength. And so it's actually really good because it's not super heavy, you know. So it doesn't weigh you down a lot, it attacks faster, and then it still has like really high damage because of its good scaling. These guys are really a pain in the ass to kill because you really just have to fight two at the same time. And plus you got those stupid bugs constantly coming at you. There's also a rare chance they'll drop the pickaxe. I'm not really sure why they drop the pickaxe since they don't use it, but they do. Anyway, back here is the Great Club. If you really want this weapon, I would recommend just running back here and potentially just dying, like just making a suicide run to grab that. It's not even worth it to just kill them. Those mosquito things infinitely respawn as well, so they're not even worth to kill. They're a pain in the ass to kill because they fly and they're small, so they're hard to hit. And then they just infinitely respawn anyway, so it's way too much work than it's worth. I'm actually going to run over back to the bonfire just because we need more Estus because of the poison is constantly getting rid of our health. So, making our way back out. Over here, there's a large soul of a proud knight, which is 3,000 souls. There's 3 of those in this area in total. I think we already grabbed one, and that was the second one. Over here, there are these leech things. You just kind of want to strafe around them. They're not too tough. They do have a drop rate. They can drop large titanite and green titanite shards. So if you need to grind either of those, they're like basically the best enemy in the game to grind for either of those titanites, especially green titanites because they drop them in stacks of 5, which is massive. So you can get green titanite really fast. Over here is the third large soul of a proud knight. And then back there we just picked up the pyromancer set. The tattered cloth robes, I think is what it's called. But it's the set you start with if you pick the pyromancer. You also get Toxic Mist, which is a pretty useless pyromancy. It poofs out this mist that poisons your enemies or toxics them. Or well, I think that one that we picked up was Poison Mist, and there's a later one in the game that's called Toxic Mist as well, which is much better than Poison Mist because Toxic is better. But I don't know, it might actually be somewhat useful in PvP. But definitely not for PvE. It just poisoning enemies just isn't that good. Regular enemies, that is. So anyway, Back over here, there's more leeches. By the way, if you're ever interested in grinding, you always want to pop a humanity, because popping a humanity actually increases your item discovery, and each time you pop one, it increases it a little bit more, up to a maximum of 10 humanity, and then your item discovery stops increasing. However, each humanity that you pop is worth less than the previous one. And so the first one is worth the most by far. It's like the first one is worth like 50 points, but then the second one is only worth like 8. Like, humanities 2 through 10 all combined are just about equal to what the first one is worth. So you'll want to pop one, but then you really don't need to worry about popping anymore. Like, unless you really just want to pop 10. But it's probably not worth it. And there they actually dropped a stack of green titanite. What green titanite does, I don't remember if I explained it yet, but there's basically magic weapons that it'll upgrade, divine weapons, and fire weapons. The blacksmith that upgrades your weapons into magic, we haven't actually met. However, it is possible to have met him. I just didn't bother talking to him yet. The one that has divine is actually Andre. However, we don't have the ember. However, we could get the ember by now. It's just a little bit out of the way. We'll be getting it a little later, and it's not that useful anyway. Magic weapons scale with intelligence, which is for magic, and then divine weapons scale with faith. Honestly, neither of them are ever really worth making. There is a reason to make a divine weapon, but it's just for like one spot in the game. It's not really worth like, you know, making one and then like using that for the rest of the game. It's not very good. There are actually enchantments that you can get if you choose to do an intelligence build or a faith build, and those are much, much better than making your weapon magic or divine. There's also fire weapons. The blacksmith for that isn't for a while. We could technically get to him, but you're not intended to get to him yet. But fire weapons take away scaling. And so the elemental weapons, fire and lightning, actually used to be really good. However, they got nerfed. I think I actually mentioned that before. I can't remember, honestly. But they got nerfed by 10%, so they're not nearly as good as they used to be. But anyway, if you climb up here, there's actually a illusory wall. And behind it is a twin humanity, and then another illusory wall. And back here is the Great Hollow. And so this is a complete side area, and that's actually what we're going to be doing for the rest of the video today. The first thing you're going to want to do when you get here is just spend as many of your souls as you possibly can, because you are basically going to die here. Just because you really... There's basically a giant hole. You're at the top of a tree and we're descending it, and you're most likely going to fall. And honestly, sometimes whenever you just want to get back to the top, it's fastest just to suicide anyway. So I just always get rid of all my souls. Over here is going to be our first drop, and down here I actually miss it. But let's try that again. And so, now that we make it, we get the Chloranthy ring, which is a much, much better ring than the Ring of the Evil Eye that I currently have equipped. So, I'm going to get rid of that. And this increases our stamina recovery, just like our shield. So, now we actually have, like, a lot of stamina recovery. So, stamina recovers really, really fast. Down here, there are more of these frog things. By the way, the depths and the Great Hollow and the area right after the Great Hollow, basically, which is called Ash Lake. We'll be getting to it shortly anyway. Are the only areas in the entire game that have these frogs that curse you. So you won't have to worry about them anymore once we're out of here. So anyway, we're going to do some more descending. As you descend, you'll notice that there are a bunch of items. And okay, well, once we get over here, one of the things is there's 10 crystal lizards in this Great Hollow. And to make them appear, you need to save and quit out of your game. And then it actually took me more than one try just to do this. I just cut out all of the saving and quitting. And so you'll have to do it multiple times if you want to try to get all of them. I'm only going to get 8 of them just because 2 of them are a pain in the ass to get, and so I just don't even bother with them. But they'll always drop 2 Twinkling Titanite, and then they'll either drop 2 large Titanite shards, a Titanite chunk of any caliber, or 2 Titanite chunks of any caliber, or a Titanite slab, which is the highest upgrading material. I don't think they drop colored Titanite slabs. I think they only drop regular ones. I've only ever gotten the regular ones. So as far as I know, you can't get the colored ones. But in this entire area, there are 2 of each chunk. There are 2 red Titanite chunks, 2 white Titanite chunks, 2 blue Titanite chunks, and 2 regular Titanite chunks. It's kind of a pain to get all of them because you have to do it multiple times. And so usually you just want to try to find the ones that you need. But yeah, I'm not actually going to bother getting all of them because they're really a pain in the ass. If you can manage to make it all the way down to this little spot here and then make this one final fall, you'll get a red Titanite chunk. But what these different colored chunks do is they're for upgrading different weapons. So what white Titanite chunks do is they upgrade divine / occult weapons once they're at their final stages of being upgraded. Chunks are used during the final stages because there's like 3 stages. There's the first stage, which always uses Titanite shards. There's the second, which use large Titanite or green Titanite, and then there's the final stage, which use one of the 4 chunks. And then the last upgrade is the slab. But white Titanite does divine / occult. Blue does magic / enchanted. Red does fire / chaos. And the regular one does, well, regular / lightning. Like I said, the elemental weapons got heavily nerfed, so they're not nearly as good as they used to be. And the others aren't very good. Like, if you want to do a magic sort of build, it's usually better to either just use magic, or if you want to use a weapon, it's usually better just to use magic weapon. There's an enchantment that increases your weapon's damage. And if you want to do Faith, there's stuff like Sunlight Blade or Dark Moon Blade, which are much better than just making like a Faith weapon. Because if you make those special types of weapons, you can't get it. There's this tricky fall here that I used to get the Titanite chunk. And after I missed it, I found out that if you go back up, there's actually a much closer one to it. But, usually it's best just to make the regular one go all the way up to plus 15. There's also another upgrade path, which is raw. However, it's the worst one in the game. It's completely useless. Because instead of having 3 stages of upgrade, it only has 2. And so, if it had 3 stages, it might actually be kind of good. Because what it does is it increases the base damage of your weapon, but makes it scaling really bad. So, but it only has 2 stages, so it's really bad. So, once you get down here, I would recommend you either homeward bone back or just suicide. Ash Lake is kind of a pain in the ass at this point in the game. There's a giant Hydra over here. There's actually one earlier in the game that's weaker. This one does a bit more damage and has more health. And it's really long fights. I sped it up because it literally takes like 5 hours. But this thing's a real pain in the ass to fight right now. He'll almost one-shot you or just one-shot you if he hits you at this level. And plus, you won't do nearly that much damage to it anyway. It only has 2 attacks. It bashes all its faces into the ground, or it shoots its water shit at you. And honestly, I wish From Software had done a little bit better of a job programming this stupid thing. Because when you're near it, it's supposed to do its head bash. And when you're far away, it's supposed to do the water shit. However, a lot of the times what will happen is even when you're close, it'll still shoot you with the water. And it gets really annoying because when you're really close, there's really not much you can do to dodge the water. Just because it has such massive AoE, and if you get too close, you'll just fall off into the water right there. Into the giant lake that it's in, you know. But there's not much to do. You just want to try to make him keep constantly doing his head bash by being as close as possible, but then not getting too close because you want to try to dodge it as well. Unless you have a shield that's good enough to block it. Our shield isn't good enough, just mainly because we're not high enough level yet. But, yeah, then once he hits his heads into the thing, you can just start cutting at him. It takes me quite a while to cut all these off. I really regretted this after I started this. I was just like, oh my god, this is taking so long. I really, really don't recommend this. I would recommend coming back much later in the game. You can do the Great Hollow itself if you want to at this point. But if you want to do Ash Lake, it is possible just to skip the Hydra and just sort of run through this area. It'll constantly attack you, but it is possible. So I'd recommend just skipping this thing. But if you do decide to fight it, after about 10 hours, it'll finally die. And then he'll drop 2 dragon scales. And then back here is another dragon scale. And there are actually 5 dragon scales in this entire area. And we picked one up earlier in Blight Town for 6. And now, dragon scales are used to upgrade dragon weapons, similar to the Dragon King Great Axe, which we got from the Gaping Dragon. They also require 10,000 souls per upgrade. And in order to make it go all the way up to +5, which dragon weapons are a special type of weapon, and so they only go up to +5. Unlike the regular chunks we know about that go up to +5 in 3 different stages for a total of +15. Special weapons only go up to +5. However, they're still really, really strong. If they went up to +15, they'd be ridiculously OP. These are similar to Demon Titanite and Twinkling Titanite. There are these clams here, which we literally deal no damage to, so I just didn't even bother fighting him. Because that would take another 10 hours to kill. But, yeah, Twinkling Titanite is for special weapons. Dragon Scales are for dragon weapons, and Demon Titanite are for demon weapons. Or boss weapons, if you will. One thing that's interesting is there are actually only 10... There are actually 9. It requires 10 dragon scales to fully upgrade a dragon weapon, but there are only 9 in the game. Which means if you want to fully upgrade one, you have to at least grind some drakes, which are in the Valley of the Drakes, which is another area we haven't actually gone to yet, which we could have gone to. There's a bunch of areas you could have gone to by now. Just because there's a lot of stuff that you're either supposed to do later, but you can actually go to it at this point. I actually fell off here. I thought I was going to die, but I actually landed on the thing. So I did my save and quit trick. But I landed on this anyway. Normally you just want to jump down here to this sticking out. But anyway, up here we get a miracle great magic barrier, which greatly increases your magic defense. So it's fairly decent actually in some places. In there are more of those dumb frogs. There's also a giant mushroom. You don't really want to mess with the giant mushroom. He's kind of a pain in the ass to kill, and he'll basically one-shot you. Here, there's another one of those clams. We're just going to ignore him. For the rest of this, you just want to walk along this path. This swervy path. Once you get all the way to the end, there's actually a dragon, but he's not going to attack you. He is known as the Everlasting Dragon, and so he actually offers a covenant, which is I think it's called Path of the Dragon, Way of the Dragon, Path of the Dragon. It's the Dragon Covenant. And then he gives you the Dragon Headstone as well, which you can put on your head and pretend like you're a dragon. If you cut off his tail, he also drops the Dragon Greatsword, which is similar to the Dragon King Great Axe. However, it's basically, instead of being the Ultra Great Axe, it's the Ultra Great Sword of dragon weapons. It is slightly stronger, so it's technically better. Its special move isn't as good as the Dragon King Great Axes, though. Is the only thing. If you remove your headpiece, you can use the Dragon Headstone to put a dragon on your face. Oh, here I'm just going to pop a soul so that I can spend the rest of my souls, since there's a decent chance I'll die just trying to get back up this thing anyway. So, just to get that extra level out. But if you use this dragon head, you shoot out this fire, which does just about 0 damage. And it uses all your stamina really quickly. It's pretty much useless, but it looks kind of cool. There used to be a very OP glitch that you could do with that, where you could infinitely use any item in the game. It was particularly useful with soul items, so you could just infinitely pop the soul item, and you could get about 100,000 souls a second. And so you could level up very quickly, very early on in the game. You could just run down here and do that. It's like about 15 minutes. The funny thing is, the later on levels require so many souls that even with getting like 100,000 souls a second, it still took hours to max out your level. Just because of how long it took. Like, I think that's hilarious. Getting to max level in this game, like, legit, is, like, just about impossible. You would have to spend so much time. So anyway, we're mostly done with the Great Hollow. There's one thing we still want to do, which is kill some more of these crystal lizards. I believe we killed, like, 2 or 3 already. Oh no, we killed 2. Over here there are 2 more, and then there's another spot where there are 4 for a total of 8. There are also 2 more. You can see one all the way at the bottom of the screen right there where I just looked at. There was actually one down there. I'm not gonna bother grabbing that one just because it's really just a pain to get to. There's one there, and then there's another one just sort of somewhere, just sort of randomly along this Great Hollow thing, and I always forget where it's at anyway. And so, I just don't even bother with it. And then, so down here, there is another one. There is one in this hallway, and then there are 3 on the outside here. And so you're gonna want to just, you're just gonna want to do the save and quit to get out. I was really hoping this fall would kill this one, but then it was still alive, and I was like, oh, I wonder if I can equip my bow fast enough. And then I'm like, oh, I already have it equipped. And so I just shoot it, and as you can see, it actually de-locked, meaning it was disappearing so that I couldn't target it anymore. So I got the arrow off just in time. And then I got it. I get a little bit lucky here, and we actually get a Titanite slab. And not only do we get one Titanite slab, but we actually get two Titanite slabs, which is actually like extremely lucky. I've actually never gotten that lucky with these things. Titanite slabs are extremely rare in this game. And so getting an extra one can be really helpful, especially if you there's only two in the game, and one's a real pain in the ass to get. The other one's pretty easy. There was one added in the DLC, so now there's a total of 3. But if you ever want to max out anything, you have to get a Titanite slab if you want to max out something regular. So if you wanted to have a maxed out weapon and a shield, you would need 2, which before the 2 were really pain in the ass. So getting one off a Crystal Lizard was really good. Now that there's the DLC and there's an extra one in the DLC, it's a bit easier, but it's still a really good drop, especially if you want to like upgrade an armor set as well. Because that, all 4 pieces, takes a while. Anyway, I'm just gonna suicide to get back up here. It's not worth those 200 souls. Goodbye, guys.